Hi, this is Cindy. Today I'm going to talk about the life of a planning interval with our new art and team reports in Agile Hive Cloud. So here we are in our art project called Flyby Hive. And as the release train engineer, I'm looking at the milestones and yeah, we've got PI planning in just a few days. So I want to make sure that everything is set up properly for the coming PI planning. The first thing I look at is whether I've set up the dates and the iterations properly for the PIs. Now, if I'm uncertain, I'll go look at the projects, the JIRA projects for the team, and make sure that those sprints were set up according to these iterations, but I know that they were because I've done this so many times in Agile Hive Cloud. The other thing that I want to look at is the team setup. Are there any changes to the art, the teams, since our last PI? If so, I would use this organization view to change some structures around, or I can use my navigation view to get around to the different projects in Agile Hive. I can see on the report that product management has been hard at work identifying the features and enablers that we will need for this PI. I see that they've prioritized them with weighted shortest job first. If I'm the product manager, I will likely want to use an issue filter from JIRA to see the different components of weighted shortest job first and to see them sorted by priority according to the WSJF value. Now, the product manager working with product owners will want to start to create candidate stories. So, for example, we can look at this feature and we can look at the safe hierarchy to see that it has 10 children's stories already. Each of these stories could be owned by different teams. Now, to make things easy in a later step, I'm going to capture this JQL. Understanding the hierarchy all the way down to the story level for a team is really important for understanding context. So, for instance, if I'm on the radar team and I see a story called Report Unrecognizable Entities, if I'm just looking at the story in my team backlog, I may not understand the context or the other teams working on this work that together provides value. So having this safe hierarchy, where then I can go examine the art level feature, is really useful for me. Now, this is a simple essential safe structure. If I'm working in a more complex system, as represented down here with a portfolio, large solution, arts, and teams, having that understanding of the context all the way down the levels and all the way up is really useful for all of the people that must collaborate. So, for example, if I go to the portfolio and if I look at this portfolio epic, I can see that 2 arts are involved, and I can see that one of the arts has team-level stories already defined. So as a portfolio manager, I can understand what is all the work going on in the organization to support this portfolio epic. I can see the status of these items to help me understand the progress. Likewise, if I'm down at a team level, for instance, the scenario team, now I can see from the perspective of this particular story that I'm responsible for, I can see the hierarchy all the way up. It's important for understanding, but also for innovation. This transparency inspires collaboration. Now, let's go back to our Essential Safe program. We're ready for PI planning. And one of our teams, the systems engineering team, wants to start their planning work. So now I'm looking at the systems engineering team in the Agile Hive team planning view. I have the unplanned issues open, and I can see which work needs to be allocated to iterations. I move this to iteration 3, but because the team working with the Scrum Master has already entered their capacity, this second number, for each iteration, I can see that this work puts me overloaded for this iteration. And these are the things that the team will want to work on in their planning and PI planning: the prioritization, the sequencing, and capacity and load allocation. Now, what's really the most important reason that we get teams together for PI planning on the same days? That's right, so that we can manage dependencies across the teams. So let's look at a team with a lot of dependencies, this anomaly detection team. Now, we saw that this feature, Provide Anomaly Detection MVP, has a lot of teams contributing. So we can open up those teams' swim lanes and see those dependencies. Sometimes it gets a little unruly, and that's exactly why I captured that JQL, so that I can filter down to just that one feature and see that in scope. Now my team is looking at this work and realizes that reporting suspicious detections to NASA is not something they can do until the navigation controller team logs the anomalous detections. So we open this issue and we will create a link. This requires something from the nav control team. Now when I go back to the planning board, I see that dependency. And in fact, if I would really like to move that work forward, I see that it could cause a risky dependency. So these are the ways that we use the planning board to help us collaborate between teams, plan and sequence our own work. We can also see the loads and capacities on other teams, which is particularly helpful when our team doesn't have enough capacity to complete something, and the teams themselves can collaborate with one another if there's a possibility to share work. Now we're in PI planning, and we have another team, the onboard displays team, that's a bit ahead of the others. On their report, they see represented the risks that they've captured to date, and also their PI objectives. Now, the PI objectives are so important because they will help the teams grounded in why they are doing the work that they have planned. So through conversations with business owners, the business owners have created their perspective on the relative business value of these different objectives So that as the team goes through PI planning and execution of the PI, as things are learned and adjustments must be made, it keeps the team focused on the business value and the priority of the business value so that they don't get too lost in the details of what they are committing to. Now, this basically summarizes all the things that we use Agile Hive Cloud to do in PI planning. As the PI is being executed, then, these tools that we've seen are equally as important. Let me go back to, I am back at the ART level. And this ART PI overview, now for any stakeholder, including RTEs, product management, system architects at the ART level, any stakeholders can easily see something like this. This particular feature is 22% complete because there were 59 stories allocated across these 3 teams. This team has completed 13 story points, and there are 16 in progress. So across the execution of the planning interval, which is usually about 3 months long, we can use this as a quick view of the progress that's being made. We can hone in on any problems, bottlenecks, especially business owners might look at their highest priority features, and if those are running behind, they would work with the RTEs and product management to see if there's anything that they can do to help. Likewise, a team working through PI execution would use the same views that we saw before. For example, our GPS team. They would be able to see their PI progress, story points burned, any delivery of business value, and the overview of their load versus capacity. Also, those planning views that were so helpful during PI planning in managing dependencies, identifying them, load versus capacity. They can use this planning view equally as effectively during the PI execution when something is learned or something has delayed and they need to rework how they might accomplish the business value. Now, there are other things that must be created during the PI execution that we haven't seen yet. So, for example, if we look at this feature, we do see the benefit hypothesis, the acceptance criteria, it's required by a milestone, etc. But we also want to be clear about what we are demonstrating at the end of each iteration, as well as any feedback from our stakeholders. So I have an attachment. I can easily create an attachment with that information, but we find it quite powerful to use the integration with Confluence. Here's the Confluence page that reiterates the acceptance criteria, gives us a view from the system architect of the scenario that involves several components of the system and what we would demonstrate at the end of each iteration. And here we also can collect stakeholder feedback. Now, due to the power of Confluence, we can slice and dice these elements that are in this view according to our system and the kind of information we need to collect. For instance, all of the feedback from a particular stakeholder we may want to capture in one place. For example, linking elements here into new items that go into our backlog. What are some other ways that you can think of using the integration of Confluence and Agile Hive? Yeah, maybe you want an epic hypothesis statement. There are many other things. If you're regulated, there are many aspects of that system that you could use this for. So maybe we should schedule another expert session talking about the Confluence integration. Thank you for your time today. If you have other questions, please let us know. Thank you.